Sitting on top of its volcanic throne, this is one ape that will crush those not quick enough to avoid its devastating attacks. So today, we'll be learning how to take on Torgadoro in this week's Behemoth Breakdown. To start, one major thing you will need to consider is your escalation level. This is important because certain levels will allow you to claim power boosts, which increases your damage and reduces the damage when getting hit. So those at lower escalation levels, I highly recommend you focus on defensive type cells and avoid low life builds, because Torg will be able to one-shot you. Onto lanterns, Koshai's is great for escaping Torgadoro's grasp and providing more survivability thanks to its lifesteal tap ability. But if you're looking for more of an offensive approach, Pangar's lantern is great for damage and slowing down this surprisingly fast behemoth. Another thing to know is how to get head breaks, because most of Torgadoro's set will need Scorched Snout. So tricks such as mounting and attacking the head when the behemoth is exhausted, staggered, or interrupted are very effective ways to break the head. However, these results may vary based on the weapon you are using, since some weapons will be much easier to break the head than others. And based on my experience, the repeaters are the easiest way to do this, since you can simply point and shoot at the head. Now, I'm well aware not everyone is willing to switch, so here are some tips for each weapon to help you break Torgadoro's noggin. With Sword, Triple Elements is your best bet for hitting the head, thanks to its vertical reach, and if you have Momentum Pummel, you can break the head in a reasonable time frame. Just be aware, aiming for the head will be a little tricky since Torgadoro frequently moves around. As for Axe, Vertical Ripper is a great way to break the head, which will break in no time if you can frequently land these hits. The Striker's Mighty Squall combo has great vertical reach, but Adamant Bolt is where it shines. Use that special a few times and its head will quickly shatter. As for Chainblades, Reaper's Dance does require a little bit of accuracy, but it's a pretty effective way to crack its noggin. And if you pair it with the Momentum Blade mod, you'll be able to use this special twice as much. For Warpike, my biggest advice is to capitalize on Torgadoro's openings as much as possible, because Warpike lacks vertical reach with its combos, so your main focus will be trying to mount the behemoth as often as you can and using your special Concussive Payload or Reckless Leap whenever possible. And last, hammer users should use that stagger damage to bring that behemoth down to your level and wail on that head. You can also use your uppercut and aerial strike attacks to crack Torg's skull. Other things you will need to know is that Torg enters its enraged state very quickly, giving you very little time to react. The only warning you get is a very brief pause before it slams its fist and enters the state, which will boost the behemoth's attack speed. Torg's AETHERCHARGED state, however, is the exact opposite. It takes a very long time to enter, since the behemoth will first take a massive leap away from the players and start slamming the ground twice before digging its hands into the earth and pulling them back out. Which means if you're quick, you can reach Torg and get a few hits in before it enters its AETHERCHARGED state. Just be aware that you can get hit when it enters this state, so either avoid each attack or stay behind the behemoth to avoid any damage. Moving on to the mounting aspect of this hunt, if you see this icon, you will need to disengage right before Torg uses the move. That way you'll give yourself enough time to rehook back on. In most cases, you will see the behemoth flip forward or jump backwards to get you off. If you're one of the slayers on the ground, just make sure you are watching closely when Torg is trying to shake a slayer off, because it might be necessary for you to dodge if you're close to the behemoth. Also, Torgadoro likes to distance itself from other slayers by leaping away, so don't be surprised if you need to chase this beast down. Now, on to the next bit of information, let's talk about the attacks you will encounter. Plunging its hands into the earth, the ground underneath the behemoth will break apart and Torgadoro will leap into the air and slam back down. So, to avoid this move, you will need to gauge your distance in order to properly time your dodge. If you're very close, you will need to roll or dash right before the behemoth leaps into the air. If you're at a distance, dodge right before Torgadoro lands back down on the ground. And if you position yourself correctly between these two hits, you can avoid this attack entirely without having to dodge. Banging its hands together, Torg will swing its arms and start spinning violently, dealing massive damage to those unable to avoid it. Luckily, the sparks this move generates gives a nice visual clue when to dodge. And after correctly timing this dodge, you can trip Torg over, leaving its head and the rest of its body exposed. Retreating to the top of the volcanic mountains, the behemoth will jump and plunge into the ground, releasing a devastating shockwave at the players. Unfortunately, you will need to dodge this to prevent yourself from taking any damage, so for the first few times I strongly suggest getting far away as possible before the shockwave is released. This will give you enough time to react and avoid this attack. If you're at a distance, Torgadoro will grab a large molten rock and lob it at the player. The further you are, the easier it will be to avoid, but at close distances, you will need to evade this attack to avoid taking damage. Standing on its hands, the behemoth will lift itself in the air and land on its rocky cheeks, crushing 4 slayers underneath. To dodge this attack, roll just as Torgadoro starts to descend. Moving towards the Slayers, Torg will slam its fist as it bounces around the area multiple times. It's usually used when the behemoth has a little bit of distance from the player, especially after it leaps away. And despite it being 4 slams, the most important one to watch out for is the 3rd slam, since this one has the highest chance of hitting you. What's also strange is that you can avoid this attack without dodging if you are running away from the behemoth. When a player's in front or near the arms of the behemoth, Torgadoro will use a couple of types of slams to smash the players. To figure out when Torg is going to use these slams, you will see only one of its arms start to rise up before trying to hit one of the slayers. And one last thing about this move is when the behemoth is exhausted, both of the attacks can take much longer to recover from. Pulling an arm back, the behemoth will throw a punch that will shift its body a considerable distance. It's very fast and deals a ton of damage, which is notorious for one-shotting players with little to no power boosts. The best way to evade this attack is to dodge right before Torg propels itself towards you. Spreading its arms out, Torgadoro will clap its hands together, creating a line of explosions. Even though the windup for this move is fairly long, the timing for you to successfully dodge this move is rather tricky, so I suggest rolling towards Torg, since dodging to the sides of the attack requires a very tight timing. And after every 3rd clap, the behemoth will fall over and be left open to attacks for a short period of time. Leaving one hand open, Torg will lunge at the players, grabbing those unable to dodge this fearsome move. Once a slayer is in the deadly palms of Torgadoro, the behemoth will smash and drag before eventually throwing them into the ground. As I mentioned before, Koshai's lantern is great for escaping this move, but if you're not using this lantern, you will either need a whole lot of HP to withstand the damage or have a team disrupt this behemoth during this attack. This behemoth is difficult, so hopefully all the information I have given you will aid you in your next Torgadoro encounter. And don't forget to check out my Twitter for the latest progress on videos that I'm currently working on. And if you'd like to support me, you can use my creator code when you make your next Epic Games Store purchase. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to see you in Dauntless.